Hey guys, how's it going? Well, we on this new camera here. Had to go in and already adjust a setting here. It kept turning the viewfinder black after a minute. It's like a screensaver because I guess this thing's battery doesn't tend to last that long when you keep everything on. But I need to have everything on because I can't see what I'm looking at. So anyway, today is going to be a day that we're going to look at some parts in the garage in here and inventory some stuff and compare and contrast parts from the 66 with parts from that 68 over there and see what's the same and what's the different and what's better and what's worse and all like that. So it's not going to be a real wrenching day. It's just going to be kind of more laid back, but I need a break from sanding some primer anyway, and plus I ran into a little issue with this. Nothing that's going to keep us from moving forward, but when I contacted my semi-local paint store, which is in Huntsville, which should tell you just about everything about what's about to happen, I went to get some paint mix for this, and he goes digging around and he says, well, can't find any paint for it. The code's not there anymore. So, or the formula, can't find the formula. So I wonder to myself, well, where did the formula go? So this car's been around for all this time, and it's not an uncommon color. So where's the formula? So well, I'm not sure. Have to maybe get a hold of PPG or someplace, and some manufacturer. So anyway, long story short, we're working through that right now, which it will be resolved. I just can't stand when some entity arbitrarily decides who has access to information and when, if it's something that I want to pay money for. It's not fair. So anyway, that's that. And I can't remember if I told you guys this car was sold or not. It is. If I repeat myself, forgive me. So anyway, let's step over here to the garage. And as a baseline reference, these cars are both 383 equipped vehicles. Originally, that one over there was a 383 with a 4-barrel, a 325 horse 383 original, and this one over here was originally a 383 2-barrel. So Plymouth called this a 383 Commando, and Chrysler called it a 383 4-barrel. So anyway, this engine that's in this car now, this is it's not the original. This is a 67 383. I guess it's been rebuilt at some time in the past here. But I kind of went through when I was just trying to motivate myself to work on this car. It's such a project that I did something I wanted to do, which was kind of spruce this engine up, but I did it with the engine in here. So it looks nice, and it was a decent job I did, but this engine's coming out, and so I get an opportunity to paint it the right way and change what I need to change while it's out and all that. So I think that's going to be my donor brake lines right there. They don't look like the originals, but I guess we'll make them work. And that's the donor dual circuit master cylinder, and it's got the same kind of, I don't know what kind of, there's a name to that booster back there. It's not a Kelsey Hayes or something like that. It's some other kind of booster, but that booster is fairly recent, and I think my other booster is good too. So anyway, let's go look in here and see what I got laid out on the floor. I got out the things that I figured that was going to be the most likely to be specific to the 66, and things I was going to have to keep with it, with the engine that goes in it. And so anyway, first thing I noticed was, like, I was looking at these valve covers. These are the 66 valve covers, and even though they're painted the wrong shade of blue, I don't know who did that or why they did it, but it's supposed to be that same shade of turquoise that you saw out on the other engine out there, a close approximation to that. I think this PCV has got that color on it right there, actually. So these are really not much different than the ones that are on now. They've got the same kind of bracketry and the same heater hose retainer. What the difference is this PCV goes into this standpipe. I don't know if this thing will actually come out or not by hand. I'm not wearing this thing yet, but anyway, it kind of slides in there and fits in that standpipe, and then it's just over here it's got just an oil breather cap, which has got media in it. You can clean those, by the way. But they interchange otherwise. You could use either or on it, but if you want to be correct, we got to use these. And if you look over here at these, this engine is set up to be a CAP engine, which is a cleaner air system, CAS. I've heard it called CAP, I've heard it called CAS, but the difference is in this, it still has a PCV like that one, except that it fits in the valve cover differently. And it has this breather cap, which is laid out different. It's supposed to have steel wool in there somewhere. I hope it does, but what it is, the difference is it draws air off the air cleaner housing, and it's supposedly not ideal. In a perfect world, it's not open to the atmosphere, but you know, as old as it is, who knows? So I'm going to change out those valve covers and put new gaskets on them, and use the ones that go with the engine, the car rather, I guess, and we'll save these for some other use. And this is the air cleaner that I've been running on this, the limited amount that it has ran. This is a unsilenced air cleaner, which means it's got a lid on it, and then the base is just open. It does not, well, let me show you that very well. There goes my whatchamacallit. Anyway, this base kind of fits over the outside of it. Let me do this. Come on, dude, get it together, huh? It's like that. So it just pulls in air around this perimeter of it. And again, that's not the one I want to run on this because it has provision for the cleaner air thing. So, you know, it's nice and I like it. I may repurpose it for something else too in an upcoming project. Well, quiet. So anyway, we're going to use the original air cleaner, which is in here. And it's a big monster of an air cleaner. It's a silenced air cleaner, which means that the top of it here goes directly down over the base with a gasket down there. And that thing is kind of in rough shape. So what I'm considering doing, if I can find one, is getting the one that goes on a 440, which has got 2 of these inlets on it instead of just one. So we may do that if I can find one affordably. If not, I'll just fix this one back up and all that. And it does still have its remains of the sticker on it. And you notice that Chrysler was never OCD about putting that sticker on evenly. It's wrinkled and it's off, it's not level, but that's the way they did it. And this also helpfully says, I don't know if you can read it, where it's at right there. It says front. Because here's the thing about this, it's throwing a kind of wrench into this, and it's not an unsolvable wrench, but it's the wrench nevertheless is that car out there, that blue one, well, they're both blue, the 66, the one we're building, is an air conditioning car, so it's got a compressor that's going to go back on it, and then this one right there does not have air conditioning. So the front dress is a little bit different, the brackets are a little bit different, there's more belts. So that's another thing I noticed, is that you're going to have to clean and install this in place of the pulley that's on the front of that one out there, because this one's got more grooves in it for the air conditioner. And also the fan is the same. I'm going to keep that one in reserve. It's a date coded original fan. Water pump pulley I think is going to be the same, but I'm not sure. We're going to go out there and look. Sometimes the diameter is different on them, so let's take these 2 things out here. This is an alternator bracket. Ding, 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 ding. And I'm going to remind you guys again, I'm not trying to be nasty by saying this, but you know, I once again on this first video, that first episode of this I put up, I had a person who was that guy again, that guy who has to be the one that says, I wish you wouldn't talk about things that are different than what you're doing, and then this, it just gives me down the road about it again. I promptly deleted his comment, and I'll do that the next time also, and if I keep getting it from the same person, I'm going to delete them off the channel. I've shared with you guys that I talk a lot about different things when I'm working sometimes. It does, if I'm sitting over here doing something, what do you want me to do? You want me to sit there and just be totally silent? I mean, I can do that, but I don't like it. Okay, so alternator bracket is going to be, oh, that's 100% different, because this one's got this long one. So that'll have to change. We'll have to clean that up and paint it. And yep, the water pump pulley is different. See, it's all about ratios. See, a larger pulley, if you compare your crank pulley size to your water pump pulley size, the diameter, the larger the water pump pulley, the slower the water pump turns. So I guess that they wanted the air conditioning water pump to turn a little faster. So that's going to change. I can tell you now that the power steering pump's different between the two. Maybe some bracketry is a little bit different up around the holes the spark plugs on. I'm going to use this radiator. I think this radiator is exactly the same. It's just a replacement. And there again, it all comes down to, I'd rather wear out my spare radiator that's just a cheapo, no nothing replacement, than I would my original. I have the original, but and so that's that. I think I'm going to swap out that steering box because the one out there got water in it, I think. And let's look at this carburetor. This carburetor, I'm going to use this carburetor and intake as is because they're not the same. They fit the same, they work the same, they hook up the same between the 2 years, 66 and 68, but the 66 in there uses a Carter AFB carburetor, and this one is a Carter AVS, which is correct for this year car. And the difference is, we'll take a look in there, but these have, like a Quadrajet, these have an air valve on the back there. That's why it's called air valve secondary. And they're just a smoother working carburetor. They may not tune quite as easily, but they do work well. And so we're going to keep that. And this intake is number, I think that's a 2806301, or yeah, I believe that's it, for a 68. And it's actually used on a 68 and 69, all 383, so it's a good intake. The one that's in there is a different part number, and it's a little bit smaller passages and smaller bores for the carburetor, so it worked fine if you wanted to use it. But why not use something better? So anyway, that's that. And I was looking over here also. This is your voltage regulator, and I was looking at this thing and I thought, boy, that thing looks nice. Looks like the original. But if you look closer, it's not, because it has a date code and a part number on it. That part number says 2098300 in the upper right, and that's 528. That's the 52nd week of 68 allegedly. But this is a repop, and I know that because if you look back over here, you see that's computer silkscreen numbers right there, and they didn't have those back in 1969. So that somebody has bought that and put that on. That's probably spent some fair money for that. So I'm gonna use that probably on the other one, because the other one I have the original, but it's kind of physically challenged, which means the paint's coming off and everything. So that's going to be one of these rainy weekend restoration projects to either at least build a silk screen for it. I'm not necessarily torn up about using the exact original if it fails, but I want to be able to duplicate it. So I don't want to handle that original voltage regulator and wipe off that printing any more than I have to. So that's the plan. And battery cables, I think I got a good one that came on that car over there. These are no good. So, and these things are stupid expensive. To buy another one, a repop, right, $200 for a freaking positive battery cable. Can you believe that? And it's even, you can even get so correct on this stuff that this is a repop throttle return spring that is the correct color codes, which means it's green with an orange stripe. And I see something else here too. The water outlet's going to have to be changed, and this one's been leaking anyway. I don't know what happened to it, but it's been sitting here just leaking away. But this one comes straight up, and the other one goes to the side. It probably goes to this side because, like I said, this thing's got air, going to have air on it, so you have a compressor up here. So it's either going either this way or it has to get around that compressor. That's where that plug right there will have to be removed, and that two-prong switch that controls the temperature light is going to go in there. Speaking of the voltage regulator, that's a mechanical style voltage regulator. That car and that one both used the same style. All of them used that up through end of 1969. So when they went to 70, they used the electronic style, the little flat pancake looking style that goes on the firewall. And they changed the alternator from a round back to a square back, and they used 2 field wires on the later version, square back. This one is the one I made work, because what I did was you have 2 field wires on the alternator, the later style alternators, right? So these exist. So what you have to do if you're going to use one of these later square backs on an earlier system with the single field wire and the mechanical voltage regulator, you got to ground one of these things. So that's what I did. So anyway, good news is the hoard pays off again, because I went looking through my part stash, and luckily, where'd it go? Just walked past it. There it is. I happen to have the correct round back alternator for it. If you see here, it's only got one field connection that you can plug into there, and it's got another one, but it's already grounded right there. So guys, there's a train coming by, so I'm gonna clip this one off here and I'm gonna pick back up in just a few minutes. Okay, finally. Wow, it was a long train. I like living around the tracks, but you can't really do much filming when the train's going by. I wonder if I could talk my landlord into chopping me out a viewing area straight down there to where the tracks are. Tracks are not level with this over here. They're actually down. You saw that picture of that car I showed you, or that video. They're actually kind of down in a ravine down there, kind of a cut, so I don't know how much I could see anyway. So anyway, where were we? We're looking at stuff in here, and next thing up I was looking at, I was telling you about the alternator. The starter that came with that car, this collection of stuff that came with the car, was not the original starter. I didn't expect it to be, even though there was all this stuff in there about had the starter brushes put in and all this and that and the other. It's not the original. And I know that because I have one of the originals that goes on it here. And the first thing you're going to notice is that this one is one of those large frame starters, which means it's later. It's like 70s on up. And it has, you can always tell whether you're looking at an earlier or late style Mopar starter. Late style meaning 70 up, is that the 70 up has the newer style bolt-in solenoid housing right there. It's got the 2 bolts, one here and one here. The early style, which is this, does not. You can see that clear enough, but it's sealed in. There's no bolts on it. So if you're looking for an early starter for a 69 and down, then you need to look for one of these, because there's only 2 different part numbers. There's a part number that's scarce, that's on that value out there that I don't remember. It's like 2095 something, but that's a lot of help. And anyway, it's a 170 starter, but the vastly more common starter that's on these, like a 62 on up through a 69, is this one, which is a 2095 150. And it was used on everything except like one of these rare taxi cabs with a slant 6 and a 4-speed, or a Hemi with a 4-speed. Otherwise, 440s, 383s, 318s, 273s, slant 6s, they all use this starter. All of them. They all used it. I know I've preached this to everybody's blue in the face from hearing it, but You know, there's still people on eBay that try to rip people off on these starters, saying it's a 440 6-pack starter. No, it's not. There's no difference in them. It's the same starter. All you got to do is look on the end frame of this thing and find your stamp date up here, which is the 3-digit code. Like on this one, this is not the exact one, the same matching date code for this engine. This one's a little bit later. I think it's a 68, but somewhere in there, found it. I've painted over it. I think it's like 40-something week of 66. So you match that date code with the date code that's on here and a little wheel, and you go with that. That's what you look for. So don't listen to any of these shysters on the internet that say, well, I've got a rare 68 Roadrunner starter here. No, you don't. You've got just a plain old 209 5150 starter. And those of us who are in the know, we already know that. So that's going to have to be cleaned up and put on. That's different. Their turn's different. And next step's these manifolds. I checked these manifolds, and they're the exact same set of manifolds that's on that engine out there. So they're still going to be changed because, get this, this thing has a working complete with everything still on it heat riser. I cannot believe that. That stupid slant 6 manifold that I worked on, I did everything outside of taking a sledgehammer to it, and it would not unfreeze. So it's even got the return spring on it. It's unbelievable. But look at this one. And it's been boogered. There's parts missing off of it. It's probably welded up and this, that, and the other. Yada, yada. Wah, wah, wah. But that is good in a way, though. At least that means that I don't have to alter any kind of exhaust or keep those, because the outlets and all that's going to be in the same spot. So it's just going to be plug and play on it. So anyway, look real quick. I'll show you while we're walking back and forth. This is this AVS carburetor. Take a look at it. Take a look at it. And then watch me trip. Giving you guys some hints here. Have you picked them up yet? This is the AFB that came on it. Never mind the shrunken up seal there. See a little bit of difference? These things have way down in there at the bottom. They've got a little counterweight, and that's what operates the secondary side of it. They're supposed to. It looks different for some reason. About to get in a total different video here. Ain't got no counterweight in it. What are they talking about? Well, here's something interesting. This is an Elderbrock that's loosely based on one of these Carter AFBs, but you can see there's definitely differences in them. And namely, the secondary side is different. That thing down in there looks like a flap down in those Venturis in the back, that is a flap. It's a counterweighted flap. That's what runs the secondary side, but this one doesn't have that. So what this looks like this has is, it looks like it just pulls fuel over out of these tubes right here, which is not right. That's the vent tubes. What I guess I should say is it pulls it out of the booster Venturis. That's interesting. Yeah, well. Alright, where are we? Let's take a look at something here. This is uncut and unedited.
Yes, I just don't understand why you keep talking about different things.
Yeah, that's different. Sure is. Pay good money for those lines too. This kind of sucks, but it's alright. I'd rather have spares than not have a good one. And yeah, here's that water outlet. See, that's yeah, it's either going hard right or hard left. And since the inlet's over on this side, the passenger side, my money's gonna be that it's going hard right that way. That's why it mounts on. This thing is, yeah, this thing is actually stamped. I think that one on there is cast. You guys know that's a dry intake manifold, by the way. There's no water that goes through that. See, if you listen to me instead of bitching at me, you'll learn some things. Might take a while, but in this this thing, I don't know if the camera, I don't know if it's gonna pick it up, but there's stamped in that. Maybe you'll see it there. It says manufactured by Carburetor. That is the original choke coil, or the choke on the carburetor. So I may use that. Because I've got a repop on that one out there. I bought it off the internet, but I'm going to tell you something. I don't care how hard they try. I've yet to find a remanufactured, or I'm sorry, a reproduction, anything that works quite as good as the original. And this again, here, I hope this thing works okay. I'm going to add auxiliary temperature gauge just for peace of mind, but I hope this works. This is the, I know Howard up in Michigan, he likes these things too. I'm always fascinated with this. This is the switch that operates the temperature lights on the car. It has two lights, which is kind of unusual for a Chrysler product, but it does. And it's got, normally if you only had a hot light, which means when the engine overheated like 250 degrees, it flips on a hot light, a red light, then you'd have one terminal on this temperature switch. Okay, this one has two because the way it's designed, when it's cold, I guess it grounds one side of this grounds the green cold light on the dashboard. And when it warms up to about 130, 140 degrees, something like that, whatever it gets to, the spec is, it breaks the connection and the light goes out. So I don't really know the purpose of that, the use of it, but you know that little Echo I had, that Toyota Echo, this one that got squashed, and I fixed it. It had one of those too, one of those cold lights. It was amusing, but it didn't change the way I drove. And I guess lastly, guys, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. Had a long day. But Jeff Lee, I think you're the guy that has mentioned to me twice about these motor mounts. And I researched into this. You said you thought the left side was moved up in a couple of years. And I think I know. I really, really appreciate your suggesting me to check those, which I did. I appreciate it a lot. But I think what is going on is we're in the clear on this, because what I could find is that 65 C bodies with a big block had a left-hand motor mount, which sort of wrapped around. It bolted to one ear of the block, and then it wrapped around the front to clear the power steering pump, I guess, on that ear only. And the big deal about that is that tends to be when they put a 383 in the 68, 67, 68, whatever years it was, a GTS A-body Dart. They use that same left-hand motor mount. So it's kind of, people like those to find them if they can. But anyway, I think we're clear, because the same motor mount should be used on the left side from 66 up through 73. So we're just going to look just to be sure. It's better safe than sorry. I found my light out here somewhere and then laid my light down. Where is my light?
I can't believe that you walked all the way out there and couldn't find your light while we're watching your videos.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so these are the mounts, and I don't know which is which just looking at them. I tried to find the part number, but couldn't. It's probably under the pad somewhere. But these are the mounts that came off this car, the 66. And tell me what you think. But I think they're the same. This is where it mounts to the block. Let's part mounts up to the block, and then this, that's called your bracket, the metal part there, and then that's your mount, your actual mount. That's the rubber pad, and then that's my neighbor's little Samurai over there. That's the part that bolts down to the K-member. So we'll go look and see, but I think we're okay on this. I don't know what that is. I pulled that out of the parts bin over there. I have to figure out what that is. I think I'm going to have to order a service manual for that 66, because I'm going to have to do that probably to learn where all the brackets are going to go. Oh, yeah, here. Yeah, so there's the mount right there, and you can see it looks like it's the same thing. And so I think we're good there. So, okay, but like I said, I appreciate you recommending that to me. That was a valid thing to be aware of for sure. And I don't know where we came up with this chrome dipstick, but that's going to go. And, alright, well, I was telling you on the other video, the first part of this first episode, I said about this fusible link. There it is right there. You see that thing got the yellow little thing formed onto it? Well, somebody cut those puppies out of that other one. That was stupid to do that. Cause a far. Alright, so tomorrow I guess I'm going to go pick up a parts washer and get it going so I can use it to wash parts better, because beats sitting there on the floor with some spray cleaner doing it. That's been done it that way before, but I know, you know, some of you guys are a little bit better equipped than me on stuff like that, but hey, I'm just a common man, you know. I just do what I can do. My sole purpose is to achieve and entertain, both at the same time, hopefully. All right. We'll do the air conditioner later. I'm not worried about that now. And somebody asked me about this engine. A couple people commented. They said, well, it'd be nice if you could use this original engine. Dropping you guys hints if you picked it up yet. And here's the short. Comes another train. Here's the short skinny on this engine. They fixed this engine, but they didn't rebuild it. They didn't bore it, and they put bearings in it. And I looked at some of the old bearings. I'm not going to dig them out now, but some of the main bearings were starting to wipe on it. And he said, well, it didn't even need bearings. So who knows? Essentially, bottom line is it needs to be rebuilt professionally the right way. So it needs to be probably bored and hot tanked again and all that. So it's just not a good idea to just try to slap this thing together right now to try to run it, because it's not a good idea, and I don't want to. I'd rather. There again, if I have a spare engine that hopefully runs good, I'd rather wear out. I'm going to drive that car, and I'd rather wear out the spare engine and not the original one again. So, okay, well, choo-choo. CSX is running them through on the old S&A sub. Sorry, guys. Hope you like the new camera. I think I'm liking it. It's taking a little bit of adjustment to get used to using it, but it ain't bad. All right. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Okay then, this evening I thought I would get in and start working on these parts, and I'm not going to do a ton of filming of that kind of stuff, but I am going to just show you some of what I do here, and I'm going to switch between cameras if I think that there's some kind of situation that's going to be something that could damage my new camera here. I'll probably use the old one, so you may see a little bit of inconsistency with the quality. But one thing I wanted to touch on was how do you know what color to paint things, and how do you know what takes paint, what doesn't, which paint, all that. So it takes a little bit of just doing it and some knowledge and some research. And by doing this stuff long enough on these kind of cars, these Mopars, I've kind of got a pretty good idea of what is painted, different colors, and when and where and how. So there's things on these that are painted and not painted. Of course, alternators, not painted. The valve covers, they're painted totally the engine color, of course, except for the breather. It's black. Your pulleys, like this crank pulley and this water pump pulley over here, they're black. Fans normally black. Blades are, water pumps black. Something like the fuel line is always what they call natural, which means that it is just left in its natural condition, metal. And this one's going to need some work because it's sort of, as you can see, it's kind of got some rust on it right there, so we'll need to address that. And here's a big thing about, big topic of discussion is what color to paint the dipstick handle and tube. And I presume this to be the original. It certainly looks like it. And I went up and down this and looked for some forensic evidence of paint, like engine color or black paint, and I can find neither at all. So based on the information I found on the internet, I believe that this came natural, which means no paint, nowhere. And so that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to put it back that way. And that's it. So you got, of course, you got a bunch of brackets and things like that, and they're normally painted. If it's something metal like spark plug guides and things like that, they're engine color. So the black stuff, that's a good question on that. It's what shade of black do you like? What type of black do you use? Flat or semi-gloss or gloss? So that's something I've been doing in the past few minutes. I've been taking some things like this alternator bracket and that air cleaner, and I don't think I messed with that thing because it's pretty rough. But I started looking at the paint. First thing I did is I went over here and I sprayed a couple different kinds of paint. I've got semi-gloss on the left and I've got gloss on the right. And the gloss, at least on that material over there, which is a little bit rough, it did dry to a sheen, a brighter sheen. But what I did was I looked for a place like on this alternator bracket that looked like the original paint with no dirt on it, and cleaned it down. And as you can see, it's got a fair amount of shine to it. I didn't buff this or anything. I just rubbed it with my thumb. So that's more than semi-gloss. That's glossier than semi-gloss on that one. And then I went over and worked with this air cleaner a little bit in a couple different places. I waxed it, cleaned it and waxed it in spots. And it looked to me like that this air cleaner has been possibly repainted, because there's some spots right here that I see flaking that has been painted again, like right there. That's a paint flake. You can see in the camera right there, that area there. And up here, so I wasn't totally satisfied, even though there's some areas right here that are flaking off down the bare metal. I wasn't totally satisfied that this is the original coat of paint, so I went looking for a spot that I could be reasonably satisfied that was the original paint. So I got under here at the intake air horn here, I guess, and I found a spot that looks like it's totally original paint, and I buffed it, and that took it back to its original luster, I believe, and that satisfies me that that is gloss paint. I think actually somebody said, maybe more than one person said, that this was actually kind of an 80% gloss. But again, we're not restoring this car. We're just trying to make it look good before we put all the engine stuff back in. So this air cleaner is going to need some work for sure, because it started out natural inside and it's corroded and oxidized and stuff like that. So depending on how that finish comes back with some work, I may have to actually paint that to make it look nice, but we'll see. And I did mention before that I said I was going to go looking for a dual snorkel air cleaner lid or air cleaner assembly for a 4-barrel. Well, I got a rude awakening when I went on eBay and looked at the prices on these things. They're about $300 or $400 for one of those. So I thought, nope, not going to do that. So we're going to keep this one until I run across one I want. And lastly, we look at the starter over here. This starter is black. This is the one that goes on it. It's totally black. I painted this, cleaned it, painted it. And if you compare it to this remanufactured starter on here, you'll notice that this armature housing, gear housing, I guess is what it's actually called, this part. The gear housing on this is natural aluminum. It's not painted, in this armature, the magnet housing over here is painted black, and I've seen 98% of starters like that, except I was told by more than one person that these starters originally were totally all painted black like this one is, and I thought that was suspicious, but sure enough, before I painted this one, I got looking and carefully looking at the cracks, and I found evidence of black paint on the aluminum part of this. And the difference is, I guess the steel holds the black paint a lot better than the aluminum did, so the aluminum tended to all flake. But this starter, like I said, it's a matching starter piece to piece, so I don't believe it's ever been apart. So I painted back the color that it's supposed to be, and I'm actually probably going to have to repaint it because it ended up with some scratches and stuff. I mean, it's going to be hidden under the engine. It's not really like a have-to-have type thing to do it, but I'm probably going to go back and paint that with gloss paint. And this alternator, I'm probably not going to paint it at all. I may just kind of lightly brush it with a bristle brush, metal bristle brush, kind of brighten it up a little bit. But the only thing I don't like about that is this chromate, I guess this is, coating on this pulley. I don't like, because zinc chromate, I don't know what they call that exactly. That's that kind of goldish, yellowish gold. Well, I like that. I mean, I wish it was on other parts that need it, like that booster over there. That's the color that booster's supposed to be, not black. But this stuff, the original stuff, is very, it's not chromate, it's cadmium. I think cadmium. It's one of those. I'll pronounce it the right way eventually. Anyway, that's a element, I believe, and it's very poisonous. So you can't do this stuff at home anymore. There's no way to, you can make an approximation, but most people have given up on ever getting this done at home. You just can't, because you can't get the stuff for it, and it's poisonous. It'll kill you. So anyway, that I don't like. I may go back and scuff this up and paint this black, this pulley, because that's the correct color for it. And speaking of the booster, I don't know what I'm going to do about the booster paint yet. I'm not going to leave it like that. I may just go somewhere in the middle and I've got some cast coat aluminum that looks pretty good. I may use that on it. The problem with those paints, though, what I found out is that as far as like trying to replicate like an anodized or something like this kind of finish, even the silver tone stuff is hard to do with paint, because it's real hard for me to find a paint that is not too chromy silver and not too dull. I've been through that many times. About the closest thing you can find is you can find a shade somewhere called, if you don't use that cast coat aluminum I'm talking about, you can use a shade called oh shoot, now it's lost. It's the color paint for rally wheels. It's a name to it, but anyway, it's kind of a nice color. If I run across that, I'll show it to you and demonstrate it for you. But for now, I need to go ahead and get busy and doing some sanding and cleaning and all that. So got my work cut out for me. So let's do that, and probably show you some more stuff here in just a minute. All right then, so I thought I would just kind of show you what I look to achieve when I'm like sanding things and cleaning them up. You notice that I've got this thing ready to paint, and I've just knocked down the heavy stuff. I've just mostly tried to even out what's left of the finish, so I don't have any chip areas, of course, or any obvious places that are going to show like flaking where there was a flake of paint missing. So I don't like to sand stuff, and I didn't want to go to all the trouble. Normally, I don't go to all the trouble to remove all the metal, the paint rather. So anyway, it's just it's where I want it to be. This is the back of the water pump pulley, and I did take old Car Alley's advice and sand this groove some to get the rust knocked down on it. He said that acts like a file on your new belt. So I take his word for it. So anyway, I'm going to hang it on my paint hook here. I think I can get that to work, maybe. Let's see, I hope it's, might have to bend that actually. I think I'm going to have to. Anyway, that's not what I normally do. I hang it on a hook right here, and then I can paint it and get up under it and get all around it. It works pretty good. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on the black items. I'm going to do that pulley and that bracket, and I start cleaning on that power steering pump also. So, all right, fun stuff. Whee. Okay, I know I would never hear the end of it if I didn't paint these exhaust manifolds for putting on the engine. And so I've got some high heat engine paint, but this is cast coat aluminum, and I'm not crazy about this, and I've used this as a test on this. It looks a little too bright for me. That's not what color these manifolds actually were originally. They're just raw cast iron. So I think I'm going to go back and get a can of the high temp cast coat, the cast iron shade. Tell me what you think, but I think it would be better. It's a little bit darker than this, more of a gray color, blackish gray, I guess. Anyway, you can tell me what you think, but I know, never hear the end of it if I didn't paint these. So I'll paint them. Okay, so right now I'm just sitting here with a power steering pump and a tote, cleaning it up with some gas and a brush. So once again, that's the fan I just turned off, by the way. Once again, I'm just doing some of this non-glamorous stuff. You know, it's what you gotta do. And I thought I would just touch on something that I hope nobody takes this as some kind of criticism or anything like that. It's sure not intended to be that, but I wanted to make a distinction about, you know, when people buy old cars, some people restore them and some people just fix them to flip them, and it's not a criticism of that. You know, everybody has the right to do as they wish with what they have, and that's fine with me. But I was watching a gentleman's videos, and he's out there in Texas, and he's a nice guy, and he certainly seems to be having a good time, and that's the whole point. And he's saving some old cars, and that's the whole point also. A couple of good whole points, so I'm glad of that. And it, like I said, it's not meant to be a judgment on what he does, but I just noticed, you know, he's working on a Mercury right now, and I think he's got it sold to somebody that's gonna do something different with it. And so he's the guy that's been working on it and is getting ready to flip it and sell it. He's got it going again, but you know, I noticed the thing, and let me say this up front also, he's young, and when you're a young guy, you tend to be more focused on instant gratification. You don't really want to think about the details so much and think into the future and think what people that are working on something you have in the future want to find that you've done or not done. And I was kind of noticing, you know, he just kind of taking some shortcuts. He changed the carburetor, and he said, unfortunately, I had to cut a line, you know. Well, that's a 59 Mercury fuel line that's not very common anymore. And of course, it can be remade, but then again, somebody in the future, if they were to restore that car, he's going to find a cut fuel line. And then, you know, he took that carburetor off and put another one on that didn't go on it, you know, just to get it running better. And took probably maybe the original starter off of it and put another one on it from somewhere, part store or something like that, and changed the radiator out. You know, just, you know, those are his choices, and it's not a criticism, but it's something to keep in mind is when you're working on something that's not a belly button car. You know, we're not talking about a Malibu or a Taurus or a Sierra or something like that. When you're working on a classic like that, you need to try to think, especially if you're a younger person, you need to try to think about, do I need to save this? Do I need to fix this? Do I need to rebuild this? Or should I just tear it off and throw something else on there? You know, you kind of, whether or not you're a good mechanic or not is not so much the issue. It's just that, you know, stuff like this. And like if I have a starter in there, the original starter that came off one of these cars, like that Chrysler over there, which I don't have it, but if I did, if I had the original starter that I knew was the original, was date coded and everything like that, there's no way in hell I would take that starter off and put another parts store starter on it. I would rebuild that starter and put it back on the original. That's just what you got to do. So, you know, it's, without saying too much, you know, like I said, I'm just glad that somebody's doing their part to save old cars, so I can't really say much, but that's why that you see that I've chosen at this point and what I'm doing with old cars, that I definitely fix stuff or have it rebuilt or have it repaired or things like that, like the radiator that's back here that's, you know, luckily I have a spare that's newer that I can use. It's just virtually identical, but the original radiator is, you can't ever find another original radiator. Those things they've got stampings on them, they've got date codes on them, part numbers on them. They fit perfectly, everything lines up. I mean, you can't get one anymore. I mean, the only thing you would find if you found another 66 Chrysler that had a perfect radiator in it that you could use, you might could do that, but you know, otherwise I hang on to everything. I hang on to everything until I'm sure I don't need it ever. So anyway, that's what's going on. I'm just sitting here with some gas, cleaning up a power steering pump. So it's lots of fun. A lot of tedious stuff right now. Having to work on the air cleaner, work on this, paint a little bit, clean a little bit. So I'll be glad when I get all this finished up and ready to go on, and then I can get to the big job of getting the engine out and then getting the engine in. So anyway, let's continue, shall we? Yeah, it's a little dark, but I had to body work this air cleaner quite a bit on the top right there because it had rust pitting in it. So just had kind of a line around there too where it just had water sitting in it. Didn't have any holes or anything in it, so just kind of filled it with some putty and sanded it again and prepped it and everything. So I think we're good to go on it and ready to clean it a little bit more and lay down some coatings on it. So everything's rolling along pretty good there. Can't see there, but I got some brackets going up there painted. Paint in progress. Just say that. Got something over there, a little teaser. All right, let's continue. How thick that hub is. Oh no, 4 grooves on this thing. Howard! What'd you get me into here? I'm not going to subject you guys to this. I don't even know if I can stand it. Shit. What gives? Yeah, I got a section here that's hard to get to, and it's still a bit rough in here. I think for Thanksgiving I may buy myself a blasting cabinet. But for now, we're going to do it old school. I got to get some more sandpaper. I've got a whole bunch of 1,000 and 180, but not much in between. I'm about to run out. Conduct an experiment here real quick. I don't blame you if you want to fast forward past the boring parts. Probably would too. God, this thing's really pitted, so what I may end up doing, is Just running a set of cheap belts on it for a while. And let it smoothen back out. And then once I polish back in, put good belts back on it. Yeah, enough of that. Okay, so this thing goes on like, this is the hub side, so if we want to risk marring up the finish a little bit as we're turning this thing to paint, because it's a little bit too bulky to be hanging up to paint, so I'm going to have to just paint it on the ground. But probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the back side of it first, and then that way this goes right up against the bouncer. This part does, so nobody ever going to see that. So then I can flip it and do my front side here and hopefully not mess it up. So all I'm doing here is I'm just feathering in the paint, the old paint, the original stuff, because it's on there pretty good. It's not really trying to come off except in just a few little places. Here, one of the bolts went through, so I'm just, instead of knocking it down a little bit, kind of even out the places that have paint and the places that don't. But there again, like I said, one thing I've said in the past is that you really don't need to, unless you're just trying to do a concours job on a car that needs to be restored perfectly, then I don't see a point in trying to do this perfectly, because it was not done perfectly in the, back in the day when these things were built. They painted this stuff quick, and this is not, you're going to be able to get a nice result without having to be OCD about it, unless you just want to be OCD. And I like to have a nice result, but I realize at the same time I have a time constraint. I mean, I need to be keeping this part rehab thing going along with whatever else I'm doing, and hopefully it's kind of like building a car. Hopefully by the time I get ready to put the engine in together and in, I'll have all this done too. So, like right here, this camera, this is the old camera, and it's not that great at stuff like this, but if I can point at it, see where my finger's pointing right there? It's a drip. It's a run. It ran, the paint loaded up right in this crevasse right there and dripped out when this thing was being painted. So you can see that everywhere. I mean, they got most of the paint on it, okay, but it was just not perfect. So not perfect is fine with me, because you can have an engine that's running for thousands of miles, hopefully, and it's going to be getting dusty and dirty and be cleaned, and paint's going to flick off. So, this, in other words, this is going to look nice and clean and really impressive for just a little while, then it's not. So we do the best we can. So I just want to kind of emphasize that. Spend enough time getting it in good shape, but don't overdo it unless you want to. And I use a good quality paint. I was using some of that kind of engine paint, engine black, and stuff like that. And I was using the Blitz Black from John Deere, which is kind of expensive for what it is. It worked pretty good, but what I've had the best results with so far is this Rust-Oleum and this Krylon Pro paint. You can get either or at like Lowe's or Home Depot, or maybe Walmart may carry it, but it's really not that bad for a 15-ounce can, which is a larger size can. It's only like $5.97. So it's really, I'll show you guys when I get to the point of demonstrating my painted stuff here. I'll show you guys what kind of results I'm having with it, but it's looking really good so far, so I'm impressed. I think you will be too. So So anyway, this is going to get a little bit of cleaning, and then I'm going to hang this up and paint it and move forward. It looks like that's brazed together. See that? It sure has some gunk in it. This thing's actually square. That's good. It's flat. But this is what's called a stamped water neck outlet. Water neck. Thermostat outlet, whatever you want to call it. Water outlet. Doesn't matter what you call it, but that's what it is. This is where the thermostat fits in. On top of the coolant, the water chest. It's where the water pump housing. These big boxes have a water pump housing on them that's water pump fits in, and then up at the top it's got this thing. Lets the thermostat have a place to live. So anyway, this thing looks like the original. It's got original paint on it, or did have, but it's in good shape. But it's called a stamped water outlet because, as you notice, it's got different pieces that have been stamped, and then they're brazed together. There's a pipe, like you can see it or not, but there's a. See right there, looks like a piece of exhaust pipe, but that pipe there is one single piece, and then this curved part right here is one piece, and then the flange is one piece. And the ones that you see that are thicker, a bit thicker, and they have none of this joints in it, those are cast, which means they're made out of cast steel, cast iron, whatever. They're all one piece. So I guess these are a bit cheaper to make, but this evidently did come original on that car, so how about that? Everything is set and painted. Here's another archaeological dig. I found this bracket here in a pile of parts in there, and I knew it had to be something with the front dress. And it's got part number 2806165, and I googled that and real quickly came back to a AC outer pulley bracket spacer, I think it is. So that's what this is. This is the outer pulley for the AC or something. I think that's what it goes to. I thought those had two belts on them, but maybe I'm mistaken about the way the idler works. But anyway, that's that. And so I noticed that this thing has not got any evidence of black paint on the back of it, but it does on the front. And this bracket is painted black all over. So that's the way it'll go back. I've got the hardware to this pulley, the dust shield and the lock washer and the nut soaking in that stuff there. So anyway, just working on these valve covers too. So that's just kind of the thing you do to make sure you put things back the right way if you're detailing stuff, if you're curious how I do this. And also, just an observation, but if you look at Mopar part numbers, you can kind of get a general idea of how old stuff is by the series and numbers. A lot of stuff in the 50s starts with 1, like 110, 6280 or something like that. Stuff in the 60s tends to be in 2s. This is 280, so it's midway 65, 66, 67 on up. And then 3 series stuff starts in the 70s, early 70s. And then 4 series stuff like 480, 4900 or something, for example, would be mostly in the 80s on up. So if you're curious about that, that's generally you can tell how old something is that way. Okay. So here's one of these little details that you need to try to pay attention to when you're working on stuff. This is some variety of an AC bracket. Goes behind the air conditioning compressor to the engine somewhere, and I don't know where exactly because I haven't seen a diagram. But when I was cleaning this and painting it, I found that it had on this end right here, put that down there, it had a wire holder that slipped down right here over it. So of course I took that off. I'm going to just kind of clean it a little bit, and this thing has got some detail on it. Not going to overdo it, but it's got a little stamping on it. I don't know if you can see that. At the metal, it's got a little like a diamond stamp there. And then this thing is natural, but it has been dipped in rubber. If you see there, there's a line of demarcation there, and then there's a little bit of excess rubber. Get out of here, fly. And so it's a rubberized bracket. So all I'm going to do to put that back together is, or I guess I should say get it in shape to put it back together, is just going to clean it a little bit. Not going to paint it because it does not need paint. Didn't get paint. If you're fastidious, you could just maybe buff it a little bit and get some of the surface rust off of it, but I'm not going to worry about that. A little bit more cleaning there at the bottom. I really like my cleaning rag here. So that ought to do it. And so now we're just gonna put that right back where it was, and it was right. I can still kind of see a little bit of the line right there on the front and the back, so I can position this the right way. But it just simply, you want to do this once so you don't screw your paint up. Like that. That was it. So You know, you got a wire holder back in place. So don't lose stuff like this. Whatever you do. Okay, all done. So I'm just out here cleaning more parts. Got this fan. This is a clutch fan. The clutch is down there. It's not the original clutch. It's been replaced. But if you wonder, you can tell if this is original fan or not. It's pretty easy because they're date coded. At least on a Mopar they are. And this one is dated J65. So that's, what's that, October, November, December, I think. So it's October of 65, one date code on it, and then over here it's got, where are we at there? See, I know a string of characters here, which it's one digit too short to be a part number, but it might have been a vendor part number. But anyway, it's got a L65 stamp there. So the J65 is on each one of these fan blades, so I would assume that means that the blades were produced in October of 65 and the assembly is dated, completed December of 65. And this is the hub, and this is the finish that's on it. You can see it definitely had gloss black paint on it. And a lot of them had an engine stamp on one side of it, but this one doesn't on the engine side of it. Obviously, this one doesn't have it. At least it's not there anymore. And I had to ask a question about this because all these fan blades are natural. It means there's no paint on them, and the hub is painted, but it's just an artifact of that the aluminum did not hold the paint, and steel did. So there's no big deal about that. It's all going to be painted black, correct black. And we've got this is the original PCV valve. I know that because it's got Chrysler blue paint on it, turquoise paint on it, and some other odds and ends, which I'll show you after I get them all fixed up. So, whew, it's warm out here. I'm just continuing along. This is a big part of this. Just sit here and just clean up stuff and paint it. I got my fan going normally, but I turned it off because I'm making a video. And I've changed my mind on the carburetor and the intake. I think I said I was going to use what was on the other engine. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think I'm going to just go ahead and just use the original stuff because I want to keep all the date coded and original correct parts together on one engine. Because you know how things go. Sometimes you have something laying around and before you know it, it wanders off and you don't have it anymore. So I'd be sick if I somehow lost the original intake and carburetor. So we're gonna just clean those up and put those back on, and I'll keep the others for one day, or I'll sell them or do something. But anyway, that's what we're gonna do. So let me cut this fan back on and get going again. Alright guys, well, I think we're going to do this last little walkthrough. And that's going to do it for this episode before this gets too unbelievably long. Got my pour 15 in for the K-member and all the frame stuff on that car. And I think I've, maybe repeating myself, but I think I have discovered I got some help on it, but I think somebody's given me a line on the paint code that's off of something else that's going to work for this engine compartment. So we're going to try to follow up on that tomorrow, the next day, going into this next week. So what happens is when I start painting, cleaning and painting and redoing all these parts, it's kind of a sort of a what would you say, I feel like I'm a moth. It's like just basically just going around in circles, and I tend to just take things and just grab something and start working on it and do that, and then I'll look around for something else. So it's not very organized and not very orderly, but it all does get done pretty quickly. And so I've got the intake over here. It's done and looks really good. Oh, she's a beautiful thing. Just look at it. Ain't that gorgeous? Now this color, I think I may have said this already. I can't, it's been taped so much or videoed so much stuff I can't remember what I'm talking about, but this color is not exactly Mopar turquoise. It is a Detroit diesel green, and it's pretty close. It's close enough for me, and most people are not gonna notice the difference unless I tell them, and I'm not gonna tell them. So you may notice that I've left this vacuum tree on back here and taped it up. That's because these things are notorious for not coming out very easily, and you have to end up getting it out by force, and it usually scars them up and all that. And that one's in excellent condition, and it breaks them sometimes. So I am not going there. So that thing is going to stay in there, and that's it. So that's it. That's what's going to happen. So anyway, we've got that going, and then we walk through the garage. I tell you, this garage is a disaster zone, but that's just the way it is. I've got my cleaning station here, and I've got those parts in there. These things, which are those are spark plug wire heat shields that go on a big block. And that one had 2 with it. I've seen those advertised to go at the 6 and 8 plug location, but that one definitely had 2, so I'm going to have to look into that. But just clean those up. That engine out there does not have them, so somebody lost them at some point. And I guess they did that when they overhauled the engine, because they have to go under the head bolts. And then I got some stuff here that's being processed. I got my favorite thing to talk about, my temperature switch, and I've got this thing clean, and it needs to be sanded and painted. I ran out of paint. I go get some more, and here's my choke unit manufactured by Carburetor. In case you had any doubt who made that. And then over here we've got alternator. I painted that pulley, and I painted this right side valve cover because I got thinking about it. I didn't have to do the left side because the left side valve cover is the same. It was just this one, and the difference is specifically that up to about, I think it is 68, they changed it from having this push-in style PCV valve like that one to having this style. So it's different. It's got to be changed. If you want to be correct about it, it's got to be changed. And where we at? Out here, did the idler pulley and left the back of that kind of just as it was because that's the way it came. And got the dust shield and that and all that. And here's another detail. This nut goes on one way because it's got a flat side there, and it's got a nut with a little projection on it. Maybe that projection was not supposed to be there, but that tells me I know which way it goes. It's idler bracket or spacer. Got the power steering pump out here. It's done. The only thing you gotta be careful of, this paint is pretty soft until it cures, dries and cures and bakes, and I tend to leave it out in the sun so it'll do that. And this is the aforementioned PCV valve. It's the original. I keep saying that because I can't stress enough, if you have original stuff like this, do not throw it away. Do not replace it. You can get out of here. I was talking to a fly. Anyway, this stuff is irreplaceable. If you take that out and put a generic replacement, it's gone. You have to go try to find another original someplace. And probably lastly, I have the cooling fan out here painted, and it's fair enough because I had some issues with this paint. I don't know what the deal was with it, but a couple spots this thing didn't want to accept paint, so I had to kind of mess with it. And I have a feeling that as time goes on, that the same thing is going to happen that happened already, that black paint is going to start flaking off and disappearing off the blades. So this is what it is. Okay, so things that are not moving as fast as I would have hoped for them to, but that's just the way it goes. You have to spend a lot of time. I forgot these are here ready to go too. You got to spend a lot of time on prep stuff. At one point, I was saying I want to get the engine out, and that ain't gonna happen this weekend. Not ready for it yet. So let's walk around and look what else in here. Experiment with some manifold coatings, and that starter done. Stuff bagged up there. Got the air cleaner done. I'm really happy with this air cleaner. It's really good to me for a home job. Now, of course, I got to have it blasted and powder coated for a lot more money than what I spent, and it'd probably look better. But I don't care. Not that picky about it. Okay, what else? Some stuff here. There, that's there, that's there. You're probably wondering, how does this guy know where all this stuff is? Well, that's the good part about having a one-man, so to speak, shop here, is that I know where I put everything. So when I go to find it, I know where it's at. There ain't nobody coming behind me moving stuff around or messing with my things in here. So anyway, I think my landlord is over there at their house having some fun. So guys, it's hot today and I'm getting a little tired and I'm ready to go have a nice meal tonight. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, and I'm gonna get all this thing together tonight, and I'll get it posted as soon as I can. I tell you, I don't know how long this video is gonna be. It's gonna be pretty long probably. The only other thing I gotta do, which I was debating on whether I'm going to do it right now, and I think I am, is that I got to investigate what's going on with that air conditioning compressor, why it appears to be seized, because I just saw that fan, that water pump's got the bolts in it. That's good. Because I'm just looking at stuff here. I saw something it caught my attention, but I really want to go ahead and put all that on now. So do it once, do it right. It's going to be kind of silly to put the engine in and then have to go back and take some stuff loose to put the air on. So I don't know what happened to it. What I was looking at was, here is a bracket. This is another one of these detail things. This is just why it's just invaluable to have this like this, because you see how this bracket is painted engine color, and the line is black. Of course, all the air conditioning lines are black. So, and I see back here, I see a bracket that's got some engine color paint on it. So, good thing to remember what got painted and when, because Chrysler, like I said, Chrysler was kind of sloppy with their paint. They tried to paint as much of the engine with stuff on it as they could. So, we're not going to try to replicate that overly, but try to be a little accurate with it. Like, for instance, somewhere, and I think this is it, I'm going to talk about, but somewhere in here I've got my ground cable that goes between the back of the engine intake and the firewall, and that thing's about I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 inches long, just a loop-to-loop ground strap, and it's got PVC. It's like just a big thick wire, and that thing on that car out there, which presumably has never been off till now, was painted engine color all the way from one end to the other. So that tells me that they put that ground strap on when they built the engine and painted it, and then they put the engine in. So that's just one of those things. So anyway, so I hope you guys are enjoying the detail on this. I know sometimes I kind of struggle to know how to present stuff like this, so it's not overly boring, because the problem is my own judgment, my own opinions and preferences tend to color the way I make videos, and I think that's the way it is for a lot of people. I think that people that like to talk and watch a lot of talking, they tend to make videos where they talk a lot, and people like myself that easily get kind of bored with talking and have to spend 2 or 3 times watching the video to get all of it, tend to make videos where there's not a whole lot of just detail stuff. So I'm trying to do different than what I would normally do. So I hope you enjoy this, and we're going to stay on this till it's done. I don't think I'm going to put up, I've filmed some other stuff that's going on, but you're going to have to watch it later, because this is what we're doing right now. So, and just to briefly give you a heads up, randomly people have asked me about what's coming up with a couple of cars, and this car, I don't know yet. It's going to hang around for a while, I think. And that Valiant over there, I have plans for a project for it, some alterations to it. So nothing major, not taking the engine out or anything like that, but just kind of improving it. So. All right, guys, well, I'm going to go improve myself and get a shower and go to eat. And then a side note, I ran out of my citronella torch fuel. Well, what happened was, this is crazy, there comes another train. I had to move that thing, and I didn't stick it in the ground far enough, and it fell over and leaked all the fuel out of it. So there you go, quick and dirty explanation. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of this. Be in my shadow.